got you. Track guide for way 87 to Talladega first, but I wanted to go ahead and get this out. The track's a little tricky, a little bit newer. I know it was the first week's or week one's official series. That was run during the day. Our race is going to be run at night, so there might be a little bit of differences. It might be a little bit tighter, which may be good, may not be good. But anyways, coming out of 4 on my up to speed lap, I do a 20 lap run and then I do a qualifying run at the end. It's not necessary. I usually drop into the apron here, coming to the start line. It does kind of unstable the car a little bit, so it's perfectly. You're not really gaining much by staying on the track or cutting it. I just natural habit for some reason. I'm cutting it, but crossing the line. So looking at the wall, there's 2 main sets of banners here on the wall to look at. You got Rackley here, and then these up here are actually Ally. Somewhere in between is where I'm going to start lifting. And you don't use a lot of brake. You maybe I'll use the term trail brake. By that I mean a minimal amount of braking, and then you're kind of easing out of it to zero brake mid-turn. Really, it's just to kind of help the car set and kind of reshift the weight from the right front, kind of shift it over to the left front a little bit so you don't burn up the right front. Anyways, get out to the wall as close as possible, kind of right in between those. You're gonna start your lifting. You see, these were my first laps here. I think later in the run I used a little bit less brake, but here I'm probably using 35% or so. And then you can see I'm easing out of it and out of the throttle this whole time. Get the car turned. I ride 50% throttle through a lot of the turn. You got to be really patient. If you get into the throttle too hard, it will want to break loose, and you'll burn your right rear off, and it will get worse and worse. So you definitely don't want to do that. It's not until here is when I finally commit back to full throttle. So you can see I'm pretty much straight on the straightaway. Going down the back stretch, same deal. You want to be out as wide as possible. Here you got Rackley banners on the wall, and then you got a little divider here for pit road entry. I would say if you're going to use outside of the track as your vantage point, then wait until you're a little bit after the Rackley. If you're like passing somebody or you don't have good visibility to the outside, then you can a little bit before this entry is when you're going to want to start lifting and braking. So here's where I have committed to, right here. So you can kind of see at entry, Rackley was obviously back there. Same deal. I maybe spiked it to 30%, and if you can do a little bit less than that, it's fine. That's just me jumping out of the throttle and jumping on the brake really quick. But you can see I'm trailing out of it. And then I'm committing back to the throttle right about here. Same deal. Partial throttle till you're off the turn. I got into it fully for like a split second there, then I'm back out of it a little bit. And again, here's where I'm fully committed back to full throttle. So I'm on a straightaway at this point. So if you look at my laps, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. So that first lap I ran a 31.3. I ran a 31.3 on lap 20 of the run. So I literally ran the same lap time, lap 1, as I did on lap 20. Which means I probably could have gone a little bit harder here in the beginning. And I have some anomaly laps here, like I ran a 7 here, I ran a 7 here, I ran a 7 here, but they're all within pretty much 3 or 4 tenths. I expected a little bit more fall off. I think if the race was during the day, you'd probably see a little bit more fall off. But I was quite pleased with that. So let's go to, we'll go to this lap 9 lap. I'm going to watch it at full speed so you can kind of see if there's any differences here. So halfway between these banners, peak the brake probably that 30% and then roll out of it. 70% throttle here. Back to full throttle. Out to the wall. After the blue banner. Roll the center. Keep it on the bottom. You don't want to be any grooves up, truthfully. Alright. So that was a lap 9 lap. That was the same as my opening lap. And it was my 20th lap of the run. It's going to be the same deal. No real differences. Actually, one difference I did have there, I didn't get out to the wall, and I took a very shallow entry. That's not ideal. You ideally want to be out towards the wall and start your turn in. But I do it shallower here, and it ends up working out. Alright, now I want to show you what my tire wear actually looked like for that run. Bear with me because I got to screw with the OBS settings a tick to get it, but so this is what the tires were like after that 20 lap run. Very, very even, which I like to see. Burn the right rear 1% more. The temps weren't too bad. Again, being a night race, I think tire wear is just going to be a bit less, which will be helpful. But really good balance. I like seeing that. If you're seeing your right, you want to run probably 20-30 laps to get any kind of sense of what your tire wear actually looks like. Just doing 5 laps isn't going to cut it. But if you do one of those runs and you see your right front's burned up a little bit more, you probably need to back up your entry to the turns. And if you're seeing your right rear's burned up more, and I'm not talking a couple percent, I mean like significant amount, 5-10%, something like that, then you're probably getting to the throttle a little bit too aggressively on corner exit. So you'll just want to be a little bit easier on the brakes and throttle there. So I'm going to show you a qualifying run for anybody that cares about that. I ran 2:30.6. It is pretty much identical laps back to back here. And really that's just not caring about tire wear. Still braking pretty much at the same point, but kind of trying to get into the throttle a little bit more aggressively. You're kind of having to fight the wheel a little bit to do that, but I'll let both of these play through full speed, and then that'll be it. If you got any questions, let me know. That's it for the qualifying laps. Actually, while those were running, I did think up something. So I can't go into the garage here, but something that you can mess around with. Some people, I don't always recommend it for everybody because people have varied success with it. I think the default steering ratio is 12-1. If you go higher, some people can see less tire wear, so 14-1 or 16-1. That slows down the steering of the car, so any input you're putting into the wheel, it's not as, I guess, significant, would be a good way to say it. But you also lose the ability to potentially save the car if you're loose or something like that. So it's something that you can play around with. You can also drop the brake bias. I think the default brake bias was something like 65%, which I think is personally too high. I think I dropped it a few percent down to like 62 or something like that, but that's something that you can play around with to kind of adjust and maybe change it's one of the few things you can change on fixed setup to change the balance of the car. Um, Dropping that front brake bias number will move the brakes towards the rear, so that generally will loosen the car up under braking. And will make the car not as like plowing tight, I guess, in an extreme case on entry. So yeah, something you can play around with. Outside of that, that's all I got. Let me know if you got questions.